Okay, this is a recording on how to basically make a text file database system with PHP instead of MySQL, and just a tutorial on how to do it and for the client how to understand how to manipulate their data. So what I'm going to do is open up a file system and I'm going to bring it in here. And in here I'm going to go to the htdocs of the Apache folder and I'm going to look for the website. Now the website was here, and now I'm going to make a clean version where I have the build, CSS, icons, image, JavaScript, menus, menu systems, and PHP. So if I go into menus, you're going to see a directory, footer, and top ads. Let's open up the footer. Now if you look here, the footer shows information about the folder, the file, and the title of each item in the top menu that will be on the website. So let's open up the website. The website will be here. Let's see if it'll take too long to do that. Okay. So here I have the website, and I go to here. There's the website. It has an ad on top. It has an icon, who's hiring, and now look, home, directory, jobs, sitemap, media kit, privacy policy, newsletters, and contact us. The same information that's here. Same stuff. It's area for area. If we look at the source code itself, and I zoom that in a little bit, you will see the same information. It's a button called footer but, even though it's at the header, and it goes 2 folders back to menu systems home index. Well, where are we right now? Look up here, menu systems home index. So if we go back 1 folder to menu systems, 1 back to SP clean, that's where we're at. So menu systems, and then we look in here in menu systems itself for home. That's the page we're in. So it goes back 1, 2 folders, and then it goes forward to what it needs. Let's see, menu systems, jobs, sitemap, etc. Some of them aren't here because it's a very clean version of the design. So let's look at sitemap itself. If we go into sitemap, you'll see a very simple version of the information that's stored in the database itself. You have a main area here. Then you have a featured part of the main area. Then you have the subsections. So automotive has accessories, AC, alarms, antique restoration, body repair. And if I zoom out, you can see there's a heck of a lot of parts for that one section. And if you look closer, accessories, which is a sub area, has a sub area for each one that's going to be listed. So click on that, automotive accessories. There's the Pep Boys and Dave's Car and Auto. There's an image of Dave's Car and Auto and the Pep Boys. These are large images at the top. These are small images created by PHP that dynamically sends the image itself. So let's take a look at the code for that. If you look, here's the Pep Boys, and I'll zoom in a little bit, and it'll say for the thumbnail right here, go back twice to PHP. So we're going to go back twice to PHP. And then it says image or image resize PHP. Width is 200, height is 100. And the file is ms directory automotive image area underscore Pep Boys. So each area that's a subsection will have area underscore and Pep Boys. If it's featured underscore. So let's look at image A lot of code here. So I'm going to open this up a little bit to here. So it looks to see where the actual the files, if you sent the width or the height. Get means you use a question mark and then an ampersand for the variables. Post would be a form with fields. Now at the top you have width height, limit width height for the maximum size that I'm going to allow it to resize. In here, if somebody sent a width and the height, it's underneath the limitations and the file isn't empty, give me a list, which means an array put into these areas that are sent from here, of get image size of the file, the original width, the height, and the image type. This doesn't do anything. It's just for future use, just in case you have different types. Now we want a JPEG. So if image, the function built into PHP tells us the image type is 2, which is JPEG. That's what double equal sign means. It's a comparator. Then source, create image from JPEG, is what will happen. We will create an image from that JPEG. We'll make a temporary area, which is 200 by 100 pixels in size. You know that by here, 200 by 100. Width and height, that gets sent here and gets put into these variables from the get array. Then after you do that, copy image resampled from temp that we just created, the new one. And then from the source, start at 0, have no offsets, the width, the height, and what width and height was it originally. And that's how you do that. You tell the header of the file calling this, it's a JPEG. Make an image temporary file from here, and then destroy it once you've done sending it in the buffer of your memory. So it's not building up this incredible memory scratch area as hundreds of people or thousands of people ask for an image. So what happens is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc., etc. Every time you see this, it's actually asking for a dynamic image, which is really cool. It does take a lot of processing power to do that, but in the areas, let's say menu systems directory, there's the image itself. We'll go back. Let's see, a directory automotive image area Dave's car and auto. So we'll go back over here. I'll open this up a little bit, make it easier to see. So let's go back to directory. Those are all the areas, tons of original areas. So that means up here, you'll see a directory. All those areas, 2 Street Appliances Artsy, 2 Street Appliances Arts, etc., etc., etc. If I drag this down, you would see what I'm talking about, how it was listed. This is more of a touch interface. I should make it as simple as possible. So those are just the main areas. If I did it as details, you can see a really large layout of the entire website's database all the way down. But we don't really need that. It's just an idea. It's just a lot of information. You can see down there it's very effective to see, maybe for the person adding information, what's filled in and what isn't. So it's almost made for the website owner. And sitemap, and then the regular directory. So let's go into, for instance, I said automotive, right? Let's go into automotive, and in here you'll see the area subtext, the body copy, the sub accessory, sub air conditioning, sub automotive. So let's go to automotive and see what that is. Automotive, and in here we have accessories, and we have air conditioning, wherever that is, AC, and we have automotive. Pardon me. I guess that's it. That's all we have on there. So in accessories, I've built 2 sub menus. If I click on that, you'll see that there's the Pep Boys and Dave's Car and Auto. I like to put that little 2 number, maybe for programming and for the back end for people to understand, but also for the viewers. Hey, I wonder how many things are listed here. It's great for Google aggregation, etc. So let's take a look at accessories. So we have here a comma delineated form, text table, if you would, for the database. Pep Boys, the title. Pep Boys, the folder, or in this case, just the file name. And then World Wide Web pepboys.com, where you would want to go to visit. And if we click on here, you'll see that again. There it is, pepboys.com. You do that, and you actually get a Pep Boys. Okay. So now, let's go into images, where the images for each area are stored. And look, there's area underscore Pep Boys. So I take the area, and then you'll see featured underscore first state. So if I go back to automotive, you'll notice that there's the first rate auto and truck repair. That's what it is, I guess, first rate. And first rate auto repairs, that's a featured item. But what's the name of this image? Let's right click and take a look. View image. Its name is featured underscore first rate. There it is. Now there's a lot of programming that goes into that to make it work, but this is a very easy way to not use a MySQL binary database, which is hard to use unless you use something similar to this. For instance, if you go into PHP, PHP myadmin, I have that in here. So if we go to PHP myadmin 405, for instance, and I put in my admin, or root, I guess, root, and I put in my password for root. I should be able to get in there. Okay, so it's a lot better than having to go into a database and add all this stuff. Now, eventually, over millions and millions of calls, the database would be faster. eBay specials, seminar locations, Henry Smith, our videos, etc. That's a lot to do that. I have Spaghetti House. I have some other cool stuff that I have inside this, but not too many. Menu items, columns, indexes, menus themselves that I was doing here as a text file. Parts, title, section could be website link, etc. But that's a heck of a lot to go through. Plus, it's actually really hard to see the data itself. There are previews to be able to see it in MySQL, but for a beginner that wants to get into the idea of how it works, maybe that's the second step, and this is the first step to do it this way, as to a textual database. So let's take a look at the backend that I created. So I go into the admin area in the bottom, the A, and you will see that these are the main directories. The main directories are here in the website, the menu systems, and the directory. So there we have that. Okay. So what's going to happen is we have main directories. Would you like to delete this directory? What's the title of it? 2 Street. What's the subfolder? This is really a subfolder. And you'll see here 2 Street. The next thing to see is that 2 Street is in black underneath. So I could actually rename that 2 Street 1, 2, 3, let's say, right? And here's the meta tags, and they are broken up with the caret symbol, which is Shift 6, right? And that will help Google aggregate the site. And you can add an image. We'll get to that later. What's really neat about this is that you can also move, drop and drag with JQuery where things go in place, which is excellent. Now, I'd put 2 Street 1, 2, 3. Let's go all the way down to the bottom with the page down key. And then we'll go to Save Changes. And you'll notice that 2 Street turns into 2 Street 1, 2, 3 here in the file folder, which is pretty cool. And that stores in the database itself as well. You don't see it, but the editdb directory is loading 2 Street 1, 2, 3 area.txt. So let's take a look at that area.txt. Let's open that up. Oops, wrong one. Area subsection. So we have bars and we have fun. Okay. I'm looking at the wrong one. 2 Street is actually part of the main menu, and that's called directory and menus, separate from the rest of the directory folder. So there we go. It's kind of hard to see, but you'll see 2 Street is the title, and the actual folder name is 2 Street 1, 2, 3, South Philly, etc., etc. Now, for the meta tags, if I shrink that down, you'll be able to see some more, or spread this out a little bit. See? So each line, you may not see it, but it's encoding its view. I'm going to show you hidden lines. View, show symbol, all symbols. There we go. All characters. So there's a new line, or an LF, at the end of every database table entry row, if you would. Now, I wrote a program in the PHP section that I've had for years. And in the PHP section, it actually, in menu, you'll notice that if I take the view, show symbol, take those off. Written this for the last 4 years, I guess, or almost 5. It's going to send a menu array that's been sent to it. Now, inside there, it's going to read the file that's been sent. And then what it's going to do is look for a new line, which I don't do anymore, but I do this regular expression for different types of new lines. Linux, Windows, and Apple and Unix all use different types of new lines. Then what I will do is I will split with the new lines that I find after I do that from here, and it clears it up. It says no matter what type of new line there is, which you can learn how to do this regular expression, and all forms of it through every line of that text that you'll see here, every single one, now just replace it with only \n, which means new line. Then the program will split the database menu items table into a new line with a text file that it finds here. So it finds that, uses a new line, and then it puts it in here, which is actually an array. Otherwise, if it can't find this text file, say, hey, I can't find this, blah, 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 blah. And with these special characters, I've never seen a text file that starts like that. And that's how I identify if something's missing in my other programs. So then it returns the menu items as an array that it builds with a split, preg split, put things into an array structure. And then you can call them. And that's how this works. So let me do this and pull this back a little bit. Do that as one, just as ToStreet. Doesn't really matter, but. And you'll notice at the top, ToStreet has changed, and the original file name is now in black. Now my program sees that and then fixes it as well. And I'll send this here. Let's see. All the way at the bottom. Save changes. And now ToStreet will again become ToStreet without the 123 at the end of it. Nothing else has changed. That's what's neat. Nothing changes inside, just the folder name does. So it saves a lot of time in programming and database with MySQL about renaming, finding, collating, and finding every single table that might not be the same. So once this is done, let's go to the feature of the subsections. Let's look down here in automotive and go to subsections. We have accessories, AC, alarms, antique restoration. See, it can all move. And the neat thing is you can also add new area. Now if you go to the bottom of all these extras, you'll notice that there's a new area here, and we can put something else in there for big rims, and then subfolder big rims. I don't use any spaces, nor do I use special characters or capital letters when it comes to the folder name. Can I delete it? No, because it's brand new. Can I put it somewhere else before it's even been saved? Yes, I can. And then you press save, and it saves a new area over here, and it's fantastic. Well, pardon me, in the subsection, and that's it. So so these are the subsections you can move around. If I go to subsections, you'll notice that there's even more areas. So what happened was this website was supposed to have something very simple. It was supposed to have down here an area that looks something like this. A directory with 50 areas, and I listed 10 of them in PHP, just randomly. I did that with a widget. That's what I call them. They're not, I guess they're not really widgets, but I put that on the side, and I thought, okay, 10 with a user interface. If this is on a phone, that's going to be awfully small. I don't think your fingers can touch that. It's not very good. So I thought, okay, I'll just put it there for the computer users, desktop users, and laptop users, but it's not very good for the phone. So then I built a directory button that really goes to another area instantly, to the directory of South Street. Just picks the one that I want in PHP, gives you some body copy, a title, and an image for the area for each image. Then there are these ads. These ads are in a JQuery animation field, and it goes to each area that it wants to. So you can just click on these, and up they come. Now, the client wanted recurring ads, so no matter what, these always show up, and then the rest of the ads would show up. Okay, fine, there's a timer on it, that works. So let's go to a different area, appliances, or we'll go to, who knows, automotive, for instance. Then there are these sections. Inside of automotive, he wanted to have a few highlighted or featured areas that you'll see, but he also wanted areas. That's a lot of areas. So I said, okay, accessories. Inside there, there'd be 2 companies that would give automotive accessories. So it's a very, very complex version of Whitepages. In the sitemap itself, it's a little more clear that if we have automotive, we have accessories, Pep Boys. Now to do this in a database would take quite a long time. And once it was done, it could be very good for a Yahoo store engine. This is a full engine, or Newegg, etc. Things that aren't so good are searching. You have to do it by hand. I guess I could add a search function that I would use a MySQL database for to store keywords and aggregate how many times a word is found. So let's let's not talk, but let's take a look at how this is done. Inside of inside of the website, there's a PHP folder with these files that I showed you, including the menu which I showed you, and how it's built. There's some other functions I built, and I really like text Notepad++ because you can close up things, and I can show you how I built the functions for each one. So some of these you're never going to use. They're from other projects that I've written. But still, it's nice to have this ability to include this in every website that I build. Just put it anywhere that I want. Now, if you see, I guess I could show physically where things are. Each section here, we have imagery, which I've showed you. That's very simple to resize. And find files. How many files are inside of a folder, what's there, etc. Can you list them? I don't even know if I use find files in this project. So let's go back into banking, barber, bars, nightlife. That's inside the directory. Clean, menu systems, directory. The DB directory is where the programming is, including edit directory, featured subdirectory, edit subdirectory, area image directory changes, etc. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up what a directory edit is, a featured, a subdirectory, and a sub. Those are all different files that I've opened up for this. I'm also going to go into a directory and show you what each area is and how it works. We have menu systems directory. Now I suppose I could open up, I guess I could just draw on top of the screen. I'm going to open it up with a tablet. I'm going to illustrate with a tablet what I'm doing here. Hold on 1 second. Okay. I don't know if it's very visible on the webcam part, but the idea here is what we want. I'm going to make a new blank screen, for instance. Let me do this. What I eventually want, I'll do that. It's kind of a fun way to draw. I'm going to do a snipper real quick, snipping tool, just so I can illustrate for you what's going on in real time. Okay. So, oh, you know what? I'm going to do it like this. Okay. That's too big for the memory. All right. So what I have here is, for instance, the website. Then I have menu systems, M, capital S. Here I have a directory. And inside of it, I want every directory area. And one of them is automotive. It's a great way to organize this because if I rename automotive the folder, everything, just the folder name, automotive 1, 2, 3, everything inside of it doesn't have to be renamed. I don't have to go to a database table and look things up and write MySQL that asks a question and responds back and forth and does all this crazy stuff. It's just another way to do the same thing. So inside of automotive, which we have over here, I'm going to go to image and look in there. Inside of image, I have a bunch of different things that I'll be using. I have all the ads as area underscore. So each sub area, sub area, will have area underscore and then the name .jpg, as you can see over there. So that will be stored inside of the image folder for all the different sub area images. Also, just for the featured on the front page of each area, it'll be featured underscore and the name of it, JPEG. Now, you'll see here featured, area, etc. Let's go back to automotive and let's open up area.txt. Nothing. There's only one, pardon me. First rate auto repair, first rate, etc. So what we have in an area.txt, which is in here, this is area.txt. That's actually not labeled very well. This is the featured parts that'll be on the front page. These. So I have a text editor. I have a text program that reads featured area.txt and then makes little nodes about each featured area. Right now we only have one. Okay. So when it displays it, it looks for the name of the folder that you'll see in the text file itself. Let's do that. Area. The name of the folder would be 1strate. And if you look in here, let's look at the images. Featured underscore 1strate. So it already puts it in there. It's in the text file, puts it in there. It saves it as the JPEG name when you upload the image of the program that I wrote for uploads with JQuery, and that's it. What else do we have? We have area.text. We also have, what else do we have here? Body copy. That's just simply the fun editorial that you put in the front page. So you have the front page of each area, automotive, and then you have some body copy. That's what this is, the body copy. Then there's an image right here. That's in the main folder as well. That would be body copy, PHP. But I also have the area.jpg in the same main folder. So no matter where it is, it's always called area.jpg. And it will always be placed right there in the main page. This is the main page. Then underneath of it are the subsections, or just areas you would have in the white pages. The subsections, let's call it, okay? Would be underneath of that. So inside of that we have that area would be area subsections. And you'll see accessories, air conditioning, alarms, comma, delineated, and the title. And I have a program that reads that and all of the, if you remember, all the new lines. View. See, all the new lines breaks it up into an array structure. So each one of those would be subsections. Now I could have made a folder for all that, but instead, if you look here, sub-accessories, air conditioning, automotive, I made text files that store it instead of a folder directory. And they also have a button that would have a title, a folder, in this case a file name, and then a website. So Pep Boys, if we go back to the image, you'll see Pep Boys. There it is. That's how the data gets stored. So from the main page, you may go to, this is automotive, as we're in here. And then you'll have a sub button, and that might be accessories. And inside of accessories, we would have each little node in that text file. So it would be this would be the area, or pardon me, not area. It would be sub accessories, right? So sub accessories dot text, and in there, of course, are the different things. The Pep Boys is one, and then the auto first, whatever, Dave's, whatever is there. So you take that. Now there's another page. Once you click on the accessories, and it'll say automotive accessories, and then you'll have Pep Boys, and then Dave's, and then an image. What happens also is it reads into here, finds the folder name, and then puts the JQuery animation here, the slider, and then puts the images it finds at the bottom. So you can click on them with a phone. The idea here is that each one of these images is dynamically created. And I'll show you what I mean there. Open this up. I'll make a new one. Okay. So if I have a big image in a folder that's 1200 pixels wide by 600 pixels tall, that's the height, and that's the width. But I want it to be 200 by 100. What I do is I say, hey PHP, I'm going to send you the width that I want, and the height that I want, and the file name that I have. Okay. So when I do that, it's going to say, what's the width? And I said 200. What's the height? 100. And what's the file name? And we'll call it Pep Boys well, not really in this case, it's area underscore petboys.jpg. I guess okay. And then the question here is, does the file exist? If it does exist, then make a new temp area, blank, that's 200 by 100 pixels, in memory, and store it. So now this is inside of the computer's memory as an empty space. Now, point and copy the original image, find its original width, find its original height, and then store them. And what file type is it? Is it 1, 0, 1, or 2? Each different, pardon me, 1, 2, 3, you're right, 0, 1, 2. And if it is a 2, type 2, which is a JPEG in PHP, cool, okay. Now, just take the original size, it's really, really big in memory, resize it to this size, and then hold that information, put it right here into the temp space in your memory, and then output it as a content type JPEG, right? And then output the temporary information where you stored it, the variable, which should be, temp image or whatever, the variable, and then destroy it in memory. Because if you don't do that, you're going to kill your memory. So destroy this when it's done. Because if lots of people make this request, more and more and more and more and more, or you have lots of thumbnails at the bottom, that's only, what, 7 icons. Not a big deal, big to small. But what if 100 people visit at the same time? You have now 700, and now the memory in your server, which would use maybe that much, now uses 100 times that if it's not cleaned up. And then it crashes. The entire system fails. So it's better just to take the image, have PHP make the request, hey, can I have this picture? And then it builds it, and then it outputs it back as a smaller image, and then it deletes that part and the temporary small part that was doing in memory every single time. Now you might think that takes a lot of processing power, and it does, but this is just to show you how the process is done. Alright, so now I'm going to close that, and I'm going to show you in here how the image is upped again. If you remember, there is view, don't show all characters, and then I can just take a screen capture of that. Alright, so again, there would be a form that would request that and say, hey, I need this file. It says, okay, fine. And then it sends the width in a get variable. Those are the question marks and the ampersands per variable that you have. And then width in quotation marks, obviously. And then the height. And then the file name itself. Where is it? And then I added toRoot, so I can actually have the pure file name. And this PHP file is actually in the website PHP, while my script is probably a menu systems directory. And menu systems directory is 1, 2 back, but PHP is only 1 back. So it's better to declare the root right here. I'll clean that up. You can see the root itself is only 1 back, 1 folder back. That's why I add toRoot to here. So locally to this PHP file and the file name that was sent. Where is it? Forward. Okay, so if we have a width and it's not smaller, if it's smaller than 2000 pixels, the limit I made, the height and the limit, and the file is an empty. See the quotation marks? That means nothing's in it. Then list, which means take an array of information from here that gets sent back and put it in these new variables. That's what the list does. And image size is a PHP function that questions and looks at the file itself. It says, oh, I see, that's the file information right there. And it gets the image size, the image type. This is for later use, just to let you know. Case 1, the response is a GIF. 2 is a JPEG, 3 is a PNG. They decided that. It's not empirical, it's just what they decided. So if image type equals 2, which is a JPEG, then go ahead and do this thing and send a JPEG out to the page that's calling it. Read the source. Here's the new temporary area that we make, create image from true color, and then copy resampled, which means make a big image, resample in memory down to smaller, probably with bicubic sampling, etc. It depends on how you do it. And there's your image, and it gets put into the temp area on top of that memory space that you did. And then header, what type is it? It's a JPEG. And then image JPEG from that temp area, and then destroy it from memory so you don't waste a lot of memory. And that gets sent all the way back to this page that you'll see. I think I have it listed here. If I don't, I'll just open it up. In directory, there is an area where it says, let's say index will show us. Okay. In here, the loop that I do, the loop that I do is the area slider. Okay. So the widgets that I created, let's close this directory. Widgets, area slider. So let's take a look. In the area slider itself, I'm going to be asking for an image. What's nice in here is I can have it for sub menus or featured. Featured will have a JPEG with featured underscore. Image pre-string for the sub areas would be area underscore. So you just send a variable called slider type, or you define it in the other pages that call when it calls for this. So let me go in here. And where is that? Where do I put that in there? Here it is. So the width equals 200, the height equals 100, and the f equals the file name, image name thumb. That gets defined in a loop after it reads the directory itself and it explodes the array. If you see up here, read menu array. Here's the file that got sent to me, etc. There's the directory, the page that was sent, and the slider add string that you see up there. Okay, slider add string is sub underscore text. If it's a sub menu, featured is just area.txt. So it's another way to do a database without using, a binary data table. So now we have, if it's not empty, the first line, because it could be a text file that's empty, then do that. Then we want to explode with commas the data that we get. And I think here's an example. It's done with commas, as you can see. That's what explode does. Then we just simply say, does the file exist? If the file image exists in the folder that we'll see in there for the area. I think we were in automotive images. Okay, if they find that image, that's good. Then the image thumb will equal that. If not, then it'll equal no directory and no directory resize. The reason for this is that if you go up here and this isn't finished, then you go to image and you'll see that I've made blank things, so at least the design looks nice and it stays organized and it doesn't get all weird and shifted because there's an empty picture and it's missing. There's a picture missing. So it takes the image, and when the computer actually asks for that image as a PHP file, you'll notice down here the image target itself, when I create it, I'll show you in a different version here. Where's a good example? Here. Image thumb equals to root, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what's happening is I'm saying image, that's a tag for an image. The source is actually a PHP file, right? It's not actually a JPEG, but a PHP file that says, oh, you want something? And it returns it as a JPEG. This confuses, well, not confuses, it teaches the computer that I'm not really a PHP file, but I am actually a JPEG. So it doesn't know the difference. It thinks that's a binary bit of data, but really PHP is feeding it to the thing. It's great to send images with stamps on things, watermarks, etc., so somebody can't steal your image. Some jogging sites have that, etc. And that's how that functions. So pretty much, that's how the whole site works. The back end with the CSS design for the layout isn't that hard. You can actually right-click on here. Let's see, let me use the mouse. You can right-click, and you can inspect an element inside of it. I'll put that to one side. I'll show you this on another. Oops, that was weird. Okay. I'll just use the Windows key to move it to the side. And I use this Windows key to move that over. Alright, so we have a directory button that's here. We can inspect this element. Actually, let's do one that's filled with stuff right here, automotive. Okay. Uh-oh. Automotive. So we're going to inspect this element. Boom. There it is. If we open this up, you'll notice that there's the image itself. It's inside of a main area. Then there's a break. And then I put the title itself. But that's actually a hyperlink. The title is a hyperlink. I could do the whole thing, but that would be very confusing. So I just figured hyperlink the text itself. No big deal. Then you have a subdirectory link, which holds all the subdirectories. Right? You can see that moving. And then inside of each subdirectory, you can see a hyperlink for the subdirectory itself. And if it's a subdirectory area, I just put that in there. I also have another area where some featured and subdirectories that actually have an image. Let me scroll down to that. Some that are filled in right now. I guess these aren't. Let me move to the top here. There we go. So there's the Pep Boys there. Some of that's in there. So, oh, this is the older version. That's why it doesn't do it. Interesting. Okay, so you see that there's no extra icons or anything. So let's jump into the new version. That was interesting. So this is the clean version, the newer version, I should say. Okay. Now we're going to go into the directory, or in this case, the sitemap. And now you'll see that each featured area has an icon, and it has a title. These are the sub areas, so let's inspect these elements and look at the code. Okay, let's inspect this. Inspect element. Go over here, and you'll see the same thing. And these are subdirectory area, and inside of that, you'll have the title, an image, and a clear both, so that way all of the floating to the left would be clear. I like to call it clear both. And inside of that CSS, you can see on the side that it says, in that part, if I click on it, that it just simply says, clear both is a class that clears : both. It's a way of pressing enter on the typewriter. Here's the same thing. We'd have a subdirectory list, and inside of there you would have the different subdirectory areas. But at the end of all that stuff, you still have a clear both, which returns everything back down to the end. And it's the same thing here. Once all of these are done, that's how I do that. So if you look through here, you notice these are a subdirectory, dentists, and if you click on it, it goes there. And now artistically, there's the picture, the website link, and the title. And yet it's also down here as well. And that's done by generation of finding the image. If it's not there, we just went over it. Then create a thumbnail to save space. You don't have to create a bunch of tiny thumbnails and the images. So every time you change it, at least you only have to build one item in the folders and you upload. So here's the mechanics of how all of this is done. Let's go to the administration area and make a new area. And we're going to close this. And it's going to be a new area. And you can't see it did anything because it's all the way at the bottom. Maybe that's bad user interface design. And I'm going to put in here new area, and I'm going to put, I don't know, what would be good for end of the alphabet? I don't know, xylophones. No, let's just call it computers. I know it doesn't match this, but, and then subfolder I'm going to put computers. Tag. Hard drives, electronics, computing. I could put mouse, keyboard, operating system, and put PC repair, and put Apple products, because that's just the way keywords seem to work right now in 2014. Those are special keywords that work well. So let's save changes. You saw a little blank. That's just so I know it works. Let me go to the bottom. I could even zoom out and you get the idea. It's all the way at the bottom. Okay, let's take a look. Now I made a new area. There it is, computers. What if I moved it up? Right, I could place it there, or back down here. Oops, back down here. I could save changes. Pretty cool. Now let's open up another page and move it to the right of the screen. take a second. And then move that over. So now what we have, if I want to visit the actual site, screen's blanking out. Alright, sitemap. So let's go to directory. 2 Street, blah, 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 all the way to the bottom. Computers, there's no icon. Alright, so in computers, let's do a little quick thing here. And let's make a new image in Photoshop. That's 500 by 500 pixels. Boom. Then I guess you could just go to the web, look for a computers icon. So we're back. I put an image in here for, say, Geek Squad or Radio Shack. So I want to open up in here and find Radio Shack. Find an image. There's a good one. It's okay. Something a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit higher quality. There's a modern picture of Radio Shack. There you go, that's a good picture. Guy walking out. Rather just have, yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. That's fun. Don't always have to have a retail image. So we're gonna open. That's not really correct though. Large Radio Shack image. All right. Let's see. How about Radio Shack store? There we go. That's a nice one right there. Shopping mall version or something. Let's just go to Photoshop real quick. View that image. That's nice. And we're going to make a new image. 1200 pixels wide by 600 tall. And in there we're going to plop that Radio Shack image by just dragging it in. I mean, obviously it's not the right size, but think about what someone's going to see on a phone or even a laptop. It's not as big as you might think. So let's keep a little bit of the name and a little bit of the store. Save it for the web, or save as, same difference. And go back into the build area. And this one I can just call Radio Shack. So I go back into here and I look for that, and I look for this. So I close this, go into here, and of course we're in main directories, computers, repair, subsections, Radio Shack, right here. Go to add image, and it changes the Radio Shack up here. Browse, and look for Radio Shack. That will be in 1200 by 600 by 1200 areas, or vice versa. And Radio Shack. And if I press submit, it shows the preview, tells me the image file size, and where did it go in computers Radio Shack, and what's the file name, .jpg it came from. So there it is. Let's take a look. Not the Best Buy one yet, but let's just take a look at the website itself. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and F5 refresh for Radio Shack that I built. Oh look, there's the Radio Shack icon. And it goes to Radio Shack. And there it is. And it's down here dynamically created. So let's make sure the Best Buy one works. Find one at least. So go to Best Buy. Store. Then go to Images. And something person. That's fun. It looks like there's lots of stuff. Amazing big Best Buy. It's fun to look at. Some really neat picture. Oh, he's cool. This guy carrying these new things for Best Buy. That's fun. And so we'll go into Photoshop. Drop that into 600 by 1200. And you can put some words, text, whatever. You know, it's an ad, so you could fade it or whatever. So save for web. So go into here, save it. I'll just call it Best Buy. I go back into the design. Go back into the interface itself. That's just the code. Close that out. And there we go. That page on the other side. So let's go to Best Buy, add image, change the BB Geek Squad that I made. And Best Buy. Submit. Now it's there. Let's refresh this, see if it's there. F5. And there it is. That is the kit and caboodle on how the entire thing works. Now the back end that does all this stuff is really fun. But that's a lot of insight. It takes a long time to explain that. But overall, it's really, really fun. I'm using sequential things here that don't need names, incremental with the brackets for the array of items that would be inputs one after the next. That's why we can drag things and it would just say that, oh, that's folder 0, this is 1, oh, that's 1, that's 0, or even new ones that I create. If I added areas, they would all have folder, folder, folder with the brackets. So no matter what I do, I bring that into the other program, it reads these variables and spits out a text file. There's no reorganization, there's no more calls that go to MySQL and the different tables and the problems that can happen with that. So there's benefits in each different direction, but that's how this website's created, and that's it. And if you go back to main directories and we go to sitemap, you'll probably see at the bottom, all the way at the bottom, computers, components, repair, Best Buy Geek Squad, and Radio Shack. And I could put some featured in here as well. They shouldn't be the same, but that's the idea.